DJI is a manufacturing behemoth and they just have so many resources that some of the smaller manufacturers don't have, and very good engineers. So when they enter a market segment like this, they are serious about it. And we can tell that they are serious about it just from the features that the Osmo 360 has.
What's new in filmmaking technology this week? News, reviews, education, insights, opinions, and ideas from the CineD newsroom with Nino Leitner and Johnny Bahiri. This is Focus Check, the weekly Cinetech podcast.
Welcome to episode 75 of CineD Focus Check podcast. I'm again joined by Johnny in Japan. Hi, Johnny.
Hi, Nino. How are you?
All well and nice here. And let's just dive right into topics because we have a lot of stuff to go through this week. So actually, I'm just going to give a little bit of an overview. So the interesting thing this week is actually we have two announcements from manufacturers who are entering each other's territory. So we have Insta360 going into drones, and we have DJI going into 360 cameras. So we have these two Chinese giants kind of going head to head, which is interesting. We're going to talk about their anti-gravity brand that Insta360 launched with their new 360-degree drone, which was teased, which is supposedly coming in about 2 weeks from now, going to be announced. And then also the Osmo 360, the first 360-degree camera from DJI, was just launched as you are listening to this podcast. After that, we are going to dive into Johnny's review of the BLAZAR Mantis on the Sony FX2 camera and his thoughts on that 1.33x squeeze anamorphic lens on the FX2. We're going to talk about my review of a card reader. Sounds boring, but it's actually quite interesting because it gives enormous speeds. I was really amazed of the new Angelbird performance card reader which is USB 4, and also within their new USB 4 cards, I was able to get something like 3 gigabytes consistently per second and read and write speeds, unheard of from what I've tested so far. And we'll talk about a poll we ran, and very basic question actually. We wanted to know from our audience which camera brand you are using, because I think it gives us a good overview of where the interests are in terms of new camera announcements, because it also very much, of course, depends on what brand you are already with. We'll talk about the new Atomos Ninja recorder, which is called Ninja TX monitor recorder, with a couple new features and transmission functions. We'll talk about something on Kickstarter called Roll Cam, which is replacing you as a camera operator. At least that's what they're claiming. And I wrote a bit of a sarcastic piece about that, because I would say, this should be challenged, considering it's just a stupid tripod on wheels. But let's talk about that a little bit later. In our AI corner, we'll talk about Runway Aleph, which is a new feature by Runway ML, and that allows you to kind of upload real footage and then automatically generate additional camera angles based on that one shot, which is a little bit insane and spooky, but we'll dive into their announcement. We also talk about Netflix for the first time publicly saying it was actually Ted Sarandos, their CEO, in their earnings call, that they have used VFX, they have actually used AI to generate VFX in a major show for the first time. And it's something we've talked about before and something I predicted many times in this podcast that it will happen. But yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then we'll talk about Godox introducing a inflatable matte light, the KNOWLED AM1600R. And last but not least, the ASUS, the monitor company, introducing the 27-inch display ProArt 5K display.
So, Nino, with so many subjects and topics, no new camera to announce or to report about?
Actually, there is a new camera, the ARRI Alexa 35 Xtreme. Now, we are recording this one day before that camera is announced, and unfortunately, ARRI did not share any further information with us before the release. So unfortunately, we have no further information at the time of recording. So we're going to dive into that subject next week in next week's podcast.
Okay, so let's continue with what we know and what we did last week.
Johnny, let's start with Insta360 and DJI. What do you make of these news? What do you make of the fact, is this coincidence that we're seeing those two announcements within days within each other? It's funny that Insta360 is going into drones and DJI is going into 360 cameras, right?
It's very funny, and I have to share with our audience that the kind of teaser that we published about Insta360 is obviously this week. This is the most readable article. People are very curious to see what Insta360 will bring. I think it's also important to say that Insta360 went to the stock exchange. So now when there is a bit more money or much more money, obviously there is much more, the company is very much hungry to even satisfy the shareholders. And I'm not surprised that they're looking for new territories. And we've seen this before. It's not the first time that Chinese companies are after international companies. They're also cannibalizing each other. We will know more soon, I think next week or the week after. I can't remember exactly when we're going to get the full disclosure of what's coming up. But obviously, the same goes for DJI. This company usually looking for a certain niche, certain product, and then they do their best to literally conquer it. We see this with so many other products that they did in the past. So what can I say? Prepare the popcorn, or just let's see what's coming up. But I think it's going to be interesting, especially in this very competitive market right now, that we know that many are many people are on the fence before they buy stuff. And one more thing to note here, if you go to B&H right now and you look for a DJI drone, I think it's going to be very difficult to find one. It's all kind of out of stock. We don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes, but that's the best time for Insta360 to try to enter this market. I'm not saying that it's going to be easy for them. Maybe yes. I don't know where they're going to ship or manufacture those drones, but that they really entering this drone market when DJI is maybe have some difficulties in the American market.
Yeah, that's a very good point. We've heard the troubles before of DJI with the U.S. government. There was some there was actually some decision or something, we reported about this before, that they wanted to prohibit those drones to be actually sold in the U.S. And then it was at some point only for newer drones. But now, as you said, it seems like all of the DJI drones are out of stock on B&H. And also other major American retailers. So we don't know exactly what's going on. We don't have an official statement or anything like that. But that is the case. But then again, Insta360 might face the same problem because they're also a Chinese company. And if there is a worry that, Chinese Chinese drone makers are not supposed to enter the American market because of safety regulations, and the worry that, of course, sensitive data of flights would be shared with the Chinese government, that might also affect Insta360. Now, when talking about this tease, we know they only said they are gonna actually show the actual product in August. We've heard that they are targeting a August 12th release. This is not confirmed, but this is the information I have. So it will be around the middle of August where we will know more. All we know right now, it's going to be a 249-gram drone. So it's going to be an entry-level drone. I think that's fair to say, like a DJI Neo or the Flip or the Mini 4 Pro or Mini 3 as well. All of those drones are 249 grams. Why 249 grams? It's simply a easy way to avoid a lot of regulations, because in a lot of markets, as soon as you hit the 250 grams, those drones are a lot more regulated. You need more licenses. You need more permissions to fly them. And with 249 grams, you can avoid that. Now, what's innovative about this drone, it's supposedly the first 360-degree drone, whatever that means, because the question is, where do you put? It's usually two lenses, right? I mean, if you look at Insta360's most popular product, it's probably the X5 camera right now, which is their flagship small 360-degree camera. They also have larger ones. They have the Insta360 Pro, which has like 6 lenses in a ball shape. I have one of them here. It's very nice, and it gives much better quality, of course. But I think what they really became successful with is their kind of action cam, which is the X5 and some different versions of that, and X4 and so on, the predecessor. And this is 2 lenses, each one of those 180 degrees, and as seamlessly stitched as possible on the borders. I expect that they will probably use the same 8K, quote unquote 8K, that they have in the X5 also in this drone, because they announced it's going to be an 8K 360 degree thing. Now 8K sounds massive, but actually with 360 degree footage it's not, because it actually means that it's all the, like all the 360 degrees that you would watch around is in total 8K. So you would always only just see something like a full HD window into that if you are looking at this image in a 16:9 viewport. And that's exactly what's the case on the X5. A lot of people are also complaining that the quality of that 8K is not really 8K, so there might be some interpolation going on in the X5. I expect that this will be the same camera as we have in the X5, just in drone form. It's going to be interesting how they avoid showing the rotors, because of course, like usually very easily with drones, you have the problem that rotors come in shot. My guess is it's a little bit hard to say from this teaser image that they released, which is just like a veiled drone. And it looks a little bit like the DJI FPV, I have to say, this original FPV drone that DJI released in terms of how the rotors are angled. But I expect that there will be maybe a 360 degree, like one lens actually up there and the other one down there, which means that they're going to be quite separated. So the stitch lines, we'll see how, might not matter as much, because usually with drones, you're of course further away from objects than you are with a normal action camera. But there, like if as soon as you go close to something, you might see stitch lines. It's just some speculation here, but I think that's fair to say. And again, it says 8K, but let's see how good the 8K actually is. But I like the innovation. I like the fact that there is a challenger to DJI now in the market, even if they are trying to do something different. It's also clear, I mean, the press release wasn't very detailed, but they said that they are not going to compete on specs. They want to compete on ease of use, and they say that basically what's in the market, aka DJI, is a little bit too complicated. Now, to me, this always sounds like if somebody says they're not competing on specs, it basically means that the specs aren't as good as the competition, right? So let's see what that means. And I don't feel like, and I wrote this in the article, I don't feel like DJI, does a bad job in terms of having entry-level drones that are hard to understand, because especially with the Flip and the Neo, which are fairly recent introductions to their ecosystem, they are quite easy to use. I mean, it's not that you need a lot of prior knowledge, especially with the Flip. You also have those protected rotors. So, like even if you're, and of course sensors on all sides. Let's see how it does. And also that's going to be interesting if Antigravity, which is the Insta360 name for the brand of the drone, so they're not going to market them under Insta360. If Antigravity is saying that those are really meant to attract people who haven't flown drones before, I wonder what that means for safety features, because we know that actually some of the autonomous flying capabilities and require a lot of technology in the drones to actually have obstacle avoidance. We know how long it took DJI to actually introduce that into the mini line of drones, which is that original 249 gram line of drones. So now it has, on most sides, I think we have also obstacle avoidance on the Mini 4, also on the Flip and the Neo, but the original ones didn't have that. And we know it's just hard to build that into such a small package. So I wonder if the first generation drone of Antigravity will be as safe to fly as the entry-level DJI drone. So, but yeah, we will probably know more in 2 weeks. And I wonder if, like DJI, I wonder if Insta360 kind of got wind of DJI's upcoming announcement of the Osmo 360, which was just announced today on the day this podcast is released. They might have heard of that a little bit earlier and then decided to actually do this tease of the drone, because it kind of otherwise, like their announcement would have been afterwards, the actual announcement of the drone. Because DJI is entering the 360-degree market. So they literally, for the first time, have an action camera now under their Osmo brand, which is their action camera brand, basically. I mean, we have the Osmo Pocket. We have the Osmo Action, which is the DJI competitor, which has become better and better and better over years. And now we have the Osmo 360. Now, we know with the Osmo Action 4 and the latest one, the 5, that with every generation, they've gotten a lot better. The first ones really weren't as good as the GoPros, and now in our last review, we did like Gunther did a comparison review of the Osmo, I think it was the Osmo 4 or Osmo 5, and the latest GoPro. And for the first time, we saw that the quality of their action camera is now really has surpassed GoPro, which has not innovated as much over the last few years. Now, I guess Insta360 is fearing a little bit that this will happen also with their 360-degree cameras, because, of course, DJI is a manufacturing behemoth, and they just have so many resources that some of the smaller manufacturers don't have, and very good engineers. So when they enter a market segment like this, they are serious about it. And we can tell that they are serious about it just from the features that the Osmo 360 has. Let me just read from their press release, actually. So this is the first 360-degree small camera that has a 1-inch sensor, and one of the also 8K, by the way. This is 8K. So, and you already see that it's much larger lenses and sensors than it is on the Insta360. And one of the things that people criticize about the Insta360 X5 is that it's not very good in low light, and it's always been the case with Insta360 cameras that they just don't perform well in low light. I can already confirm that this is doing much better in low light. I've worked a little bit with it. It's not a full review by any means, but I'm seeing, if you put it next to one of the more recent Insta360 cameras, you can clearly see the difference. They also say that they are utilizing a much better, much larger area of the sensor than the competition, aka Insta360, meaning it's more of a square sensor that they are actually using. They say it's a 1 over 1.1 almost square sensor versus the competition, which is using a probably 3x2 or 16x9 sensor, and just using the middle portion of that. And of course, with a circular image that comes from those round lenses, this 180-degree lenses, you are doing much better with a square sensor. So they're utilizing, they say, 25% more of sensor area, which is significantly more, of course, than with a traditional 1-inch sensor, which is it just has actually it's 4x3. I see this now here in the press information. So that should make quite a bit of difference in the quality, of course. And the pixel size is larger. It's the single pixel is twice as large as in the Insta360. So that should also guarantee a lot better quality, low light especially, and of course higher resolution as well. Yeah, so it's ecosystem friendly with all the other DJI stuff. I mean, you have the same connectors down there. If you have any accessories for the Action series, it will also work with this camera. And I think all of the same features that you know from Insta360 with the invisible selfie stick and all of that is there. I'm confident that also, I mean, one of the things that that Insta360 does really well, they have a really, really good app. And it looks like at first glance that the DJI app is not any worse. So let's see if they have all the same features. But this, yeah, I mean, like you said at the beginning, Insta360 has had a remarkable run. I mean, they've been a really, really popular camera. They've done an IPO in 2025, which is, a miracle by itself, because we know the environment for IPOs is not the best right now in the financial markets. But they have quadrupled their value, I think, on the first or second day, which is amazing, and actually made the founder a billionaire. So they must be doing something right. So that's quite impressive. So, but of course, having DJI enter your market is a big challenge. So it's going to be interesting to see how those things going to evolve. I'm going to take a closer look at this over a longer period of time. It's not going to be an immediate review, but we are going to check this out more closely, the DJI Osmo 360, and report on our findings. But from what we see right now, they've done a great job at actually delivering a first-generation product that is already superior to the Insta360 competition, which was not the case when they released the first action camera versus DJI. So very, very interesting. So let's see where this leads. And of course, we'll also report about the anti-gravity drone when it's out. I wouldn't be surprised if DJI is already working on a 360-degree drone. Although I have to say, Johnny, do you think a 360-degree drone is what we've waited for? I mean, I don't know what we would use it for, right?
I have zero desire to try such a product, but maybe I'm a bit of old-fashioned here. On the other hand, Insta360 has to come up with something, and I hate the word game changer, but they need to come up with some feature that obviously the DJI drone doesn't have. Otherwise, what for? So, and I don't think they're going to compete on the price side, unless it's really something, half price, but it makes also no sense. So if they still want to earn and they still want to show innovation, I'm sure that there will be some sort of feature that DJI obviously doesn't have, and that should be the one that drive people to try and test and buy the drone. If it's the 360 thing, I don't know. I'm not a customer.
Well, I'm guessing now that this will be, because they said they're going to target entry level. So I'm guessing the idea is, of course, 360 will just record everything around it at all times, meaning using their software, just like with the normal software that Insta360 has, probably an adjusted version. It will probably automatically track people. So you can have a 16:9 result, and it will just track faces that it's recording without you having to actually kind of operate the drone. So for example, you could have the drone follow you or be ahead of you when you're taking a hike with a family or whatever, and then at the end of the day you would just have that footage, and it would automatically always frame you perfectly, probably with the background or something like that, and then you have a result like it. That would make sense, because of course that would mean you would not have to actually operate the drone at all times and still have usable footage and some memories from some kind of hike or whatever. But I worry that remember what GoPro went through their drone disaster. I mean, they had a drone many years ago. What was it called? The GoPro drone? Karma. Yeah, the Karma. It was really bad karma for GoPro, and it really became a disaster for them in terms of how much money they spent on this. And also, it just was very dangerous to fly it. It literally fell from the sky. And it was such a PR disaster for GoPro. So I hope that Insta360, for all of us, I hope that Insta360 really learned from GoPro's mistakes here and did their homework when it comes to safety, because that's the most paramount thing when it comes to drones, of course. Both if it is an autonomous drone, I hope it does have obstacle sensors on all sides. And I hope it just is a safe thing to fly, because that's something that DJI does really well. So yeah, let's see. We stay tuned and keep reporting about it. All right, should we move on?
Sure.
So next up is your review of the, well, you already reviewed the Sony FX2, but now you kind of went on a little bit of a image hunt together with the BLAZAR Mantis 1.33x anamorphic lens, right?
So as an anecdote, anytime you go to almost any shrine in Japan, there's a big sign that you're not allowed to fly drones. So at least you can still film, although in many places there's also a sign that you cannot use a tripod. But I went to a very nice shrine, very famous here. It's in the outskirts of Osaka. And the idea was to see how the FX2 together with the BLAZAR Mantis 133 lens, anamorphic lens, is working together. We got the lens from BLAZAR, and they are marketing the lens as a 133 with a look of a 1.5 times. So that's ignite my imagination. And the Katsu Oji temple is very famous here for so many Daruma dolls, and those little dolls are simply to bring luck. So I really hope that my video will bring luck for both, for the camera and for the lens. But in any case, I came back, saw the footage, and I was very impressed. I just want to summarize, because we already discussed at least the FX2. I really like working with this camera. Yes, it has a lot of limitations. We talked about those limitations, but for me, the EVF is the feature that actually allows me to work in a really direct sunlight, and I think with the FX3 or FX30 that would have been very difficult. And I'm not a person who runs with monitors or monitor shades and so on. I need the camera to stay small next to my eye. And so using the camera was really a pleasure. Also, it didn't overheat, although I took short takes. It was not a long one, but it was crazy hot that day. And it didn't overheat or anything. Battery life was also quite good. And when it comes to the lens, I can really speak well and good about the lens. I think it's not. I didn't do a scientific test. I didn't put it in front of charts or anything. I was not looking for chromatic aberration and so on. But the look itself, I think it speaks for itself. Very easy to use. And this combination, although the Sony FX2 doesn't really support anamorphic filming in the sense that, if you utilize the anamorphic viewing in the camera, you can't use the IBIS and vice versa. So it's really, Sony doesn't really give much love to anamorphic in general, but still, and that was one of the places that I could still put a small tripod and also a small slider. Nobody really bothered me. Everybody were very friendly, and I'm really satisfied with what I came back.
I love the fact that the bokeh looks less like a 1.33x anamorphic, and I would say a little bit closer to their Remus, the 1.5x. I mean, it's not quite there, but I think it's miles better than, for example, what we've seen from competitors that have 1.33x anamorphic lenses, which always, to my taste, didn't have enough of that anamorphic look. I mean, with this one, I think it's different. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, what I really try to do is work mostly on T2. This is the maximum open aperture for this lens, and it's still insanely sharp for that type of lens. Of course, the corners are a bit softer, but all in all, it gives a very nice blend also to the bokeh, and I really liked it. So if you're considering such a lens, I used the 35mm, which is a good, it's a good balance between having wide shots and also get a bit closer to people if they allow you. And of course, everyone that I filmed in all those kind of portraits, it was with permission from people that I filmed. Again, it's a very capable lens. I think BLAZAR did a really good job here, and it's not so expensive. Let me just just see again how much it cost. Where is the price of it? It's
how many?
$1,000.
Yeah, $1,000 each. Which focal length do they have actually, apart from 35?
They also have the, one second, I'll tell you in a second. First of all, the mounts they have is the PL and the Sony E. It's also interchangeable. And the lengths that they have is 35, 50, and 75 millimeter.
Nice. Yeah, they look
Yeah.
really nice. I agree, and I just want to say also, like you said, I mean, it looks extremely sharp for an anamorphic lens. The separation is just very concise in a way. I mean, it's like you can very. It seems like it's doing a great job at separating objects, which sometimes with some anamorphic lenses that are a little bit softer is much harder to see, I think. Yeah.
No, this is by far my favorite anamorphic lens on the budget right now. I mean, the whole series, I guess, is nice. I tested only the 35 millimeter. By the way, if you buy the kit, which consists of 3 lenses, I think there's like a $200 US dollar savings altogether, which is significant. It's a lens that I wouldn't hesitate to work even on a paid job. I think you can really have this balance between a very special look and still stay on a budget which is absolutely reasonable.
Very nice. So yeah, if you didn't see the video version of this podcast and still want to watch Johnny's review, I encourage you to check it out. And good. Let's move on to the other review that we had this week, which is a lot less interesting, not interesting, but a lot less exciting, a lot less visual. It's about a card reader. And so by the time of the, listening to this podcast, the review should be online. I mean, we reported about the announcement already last week, but so basically Angelbird released a new CF Express Type B reader. So why is this worth reporting about? Well, the fact is that they told us, like, guys, you should test this out. I was like, okay, why? It's a reader. What's so special about it, right? We've had this before with some cables from Iodine in the past where I was also like, okay, why? And then I realized why. Because it makes a difference. And the thing is, a lot of people focus on memory cards, right? They always, so they also announced new CF Express cards, which are their new generation USB 4 based cards that are, or actually version 4 CF Express Type B cards, which are, this is connected to USB 4 standard, but they offer, the sticker says 3,700 megabytes per second. So this is, of course, enormous. And now the thing is, there's not a lot of cameras that would need that, right? I mean, if you were
currently no camera, I think.
There's probably no camera, right? And I mean, there are cameras that record RAW internally now, 8K RAW, whatever, maybe even more. But as far as we know, like, nothing actually needs any of that speed. Now, why would you need a card like that? Well, the thing is, I checked specs. First, I checked specs of readers we had and readers that are still in the market. Now, what is USB 4? Well, USB 4 allows speeds of up to 40 gigabits per second. Now, that, sounds like, okay, what does that mean? Well, in comparison, the USB 3.2 standard supported up to 20 gigabits per second, so it's half the speed. So usually the card reader wasn't really the bottleneck, because in the past, usually memory cards were slower than the reader, but this has changed. So if you have a card like this and you have a reader that actually supports USB 4, it does make a difference. I ran speed tests with 5 different readers that I found here at the office, from SanDisk, from OWC, and also an older Angelbird CF Express B reader. And most of them actually were just below 1,000 megabytes per second in both read and write speeds. Not bad results, but with this new card, right? Not bad results, actually what I expected. This it's just kind of in line with what the USB 3.2 standard supports. To make sure that the bottleneck was not the cable, I used a Thunderbolt 4 cable, even though those readers were not Thunderbolt devices. But if you have a Thunderbolt cable, it will guarantee you that you are, this is not the bottleneck, because there are definitely USB-C cables that are not, like they're USB-C connector cables that actually have USB 2 standard inside. A lot of people don't realize this, but for example, if you use the cable that, for example, ships with a Rode Wireless Go, which is really just meant to charge the actual wireless transmitter, but if you use that to transfer data, it will be extremely slow because it's a USB 2 cable, right? So it is important to use the right cable. If you use a Thunderbolt 4 cable, you can be sure that the cable will not be the problem. I mean, this has a lot more throughput than anything you can throw at it. So this was using the maximum speed of the cable and the maximum speed of those readers with that new card, and I never came above 1,000 megabytes per second, except for the read speed on one OWC reader, which was 1,500, which was good, but the write speed on that was really bad at 350 megabytes per second, which was funny. But all the others were always write and read around 1,000 megabytes per second. Then I used this one, and I did the speed test with the Blackmagic disk speed tool, right, where you can test. It's just doing repeated tests of read and write, and then also show you the actual quality of recording you can have. So it's like it will show you all the resolutions and frame rates you can have. And with this one, I got 3,000 megabytes per second, over 3,000 megabytes per second for both read and write speeds. Actually, the writing was a little bit faster even than that. That's insane. That's 3 gigabytes per second consistently, and it was consistently. You can keep it running. It didn't slow down. There was no thermal throttling because this has a little bit of it has a small fan that kicks in when it gets too hot, and it does get hot. I mean, don't get me wrong, this does get hot because it's just putting, what that means in practice, I mean, I needed less than 5 seconds, I think about 4 seconds to transfer 24 gigabytes. I mean, it's like this. Very often you just move a file and you don't even get the pop-up where it actually is transferring something because it's done, right? So it's really, really amazing. And just for the sake of it, I made a fun comparison. I actually tried, when I realized how fast this is, I wanted to put it against the fastest SSD drive that I could find at our studio. And the fastest one I could find was a G Drive Mobile Pro, or actually G Drive Pro SSD, which is, I think, up to 2,800 megabytes per second. And in practice, with the fastest cable, this didn't exceed, I mean, I think it was 2,000 write speed and 2,500 megabytes per second read speed. So it was slower than this. And that's a Thunderbolt device. And this is a USB 4 device. So, I mean, what that means for me, that this is basically my new, on-the-go editing solution, because it's faster than any SSD you can buy. And it's just a very, impressive combination. Now, of course, it comes at a price. Those cards are not cheap. I mean, the 1 terabyte card, I think, is around $300 or euros plus tax. And the reader is $250 or 250 euros plus tax. So, it comes at a price, but it's not too far from an SSD that you would buy that is kind of all in one, but slower than this. So, very impressive. All right, so that's about the Angelbird reader, which I quite like. So, of course, I wouldn't recommend using a memory card that you just pulled out of the camera for straight editing, because you should do a backup. But let's say you have a camera that has dual slot recording. You can use that second card definitely to edit from right away, or you just, make an additional copy and use this for editing if you want to. So definitely an option. So very nice device. Works really well, and I like the fact that somebody is actually focusing on the fact that we don't want to spend hours and hours and hours offloading footage at the end of a shooting day when we really want to just relax and have a beer. So this will save you the time. Good. Let's move on to our poll of the week. Johnny, do you want to talk about that?
Wait. Actually, this is a poll that you conducted.
Well, I can introduce it. Yeah, I mean, it's you can. I wanted to know, very simple thing actually. What cameras are you guys using? Like, we have a lot of people on our website every day, but we didn't have any hard numbers in terms of like what people are using. So Let's look
I
at the
also wanted
result.
to know if they are about to switch a camera. I mean, it's actually two questions in one, and it was very interesting. So first of all, like almost 1,000 people took the time to vote, and sometimes I wonder if also companies are telling
I
their
agree.
employees to to vote, because number one, actually, your main camera brand of choice is Panasonic.
I'm also
And
surprised by that, like you said, because honestly, I observed that poll a little bit, and for the first day, Sony was very much in the lead, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, Panasonic overtook. So we're not saying that this is the case, but we are just saying it
no,
could be that somebody who's very enthusiastic about Panasonic, because I mean, you are only able to vote once, of course, per device, I guess. But let's see. I mean, I think it's fair to say that the three main brands, of course, are Panasonic, Sony, and Canon, with a strong fourth, Blackmagic design, after that. And then after, with a big gap, actually, there's Fujifilm, then Red. So Fujifilm and Red, actually same amount of users. Then Nikon, ARRI, and yeah, the rest, I would
the
say.
rest is but first of all, something doesn't match here. Like, we know that Panasonic is not a brand that sells the most in so many territories. Usually it's really Sony, Canon, or Nikon, and in some cases even Fujifilm. So I'm a bit surprised to see Panasonic here. Okay, we don't suspect anybody, but still, it's very interesting. So now we know what is the main camera serving a lot or many of our audience. And the second question was, are you planning to switch your main camera brand within the next 2 months?
12 months.
And that's 12 months, yeah. And this is also very interesting as a question. And you can see that 81% of the people actually are not, they couldn't care less. They're not going to switch a camera. And I think, both of us, we're always saying that there are no really bad cameras those days. And a lot of it is depending on your ability to create a story and make nice images. And the camera is just a tool. Like, it was always a tool, but there are no bad cameras now. So the second thing is, this is maybe more for manufacturers to be aware that people are not running to change cameras so fast. And that's, of course, bring us to the point that you have to be innovative, like always, and you have to introduce features that people would really want to buy, like within a camera. And that means that not only stay within your camera or manufacturer environment. For example, of course, people are also invested in lenses and so on. But let's say that I have a Sony camera and suddenly Canon introduces something really unique. Not only Canon users should think about upgrading, but also Sony users should think if to buy a Canon camera. So that's the only way to go, is simply to continue innovating. And since IBC is kind of around the corner, I'm very curious to see if there will be any new announcement. We know certainly about one announcement, but it's too early to talk about. The company, of course, is mentioned in this poll, but as the day come closer, hopefully we will be able to talk about it. And if not, please stay tuned to IBC.
Yeah, I think actually maybe we should have asked another follow-up question, because the question was, are you planning to switch your main camera within the next 12 months? We didn't ask, would you want to? Because I think those are two different things, because I think a lot of people feel very much locked into a system because they have the lenses. It's going to be very hard to get out of a system if you are, especially with mirrorless mounts that you cannot adapt to each other. Like, even if you want to move, for example, from Sony to Panasonic or Canon, it's going to be hard because you will have to sell everything you have. Considering that, I think those 20%, of course, it's not such a big number, but it is actually not small. However, we're talking about a market that is finite, right? It's not huge. It's a very concise market in a way for professional cameras in general. So like you said, like I think it's they're kind of eating each other, trying to with features, but I don't know if even the best features are enough for people to change, because it's just very hard to get out of an ecosystem.
But there is a trend right now, especially with Chinese manufacturers, to introduce lenses with interchangeable mount. And to do this, it's very, very easy. It's literally a minute at home. And so that, of course, makes things much easier. We've seen this from BLAZAR, we see this from Sirui, we see this from others. I hope we will see this also. You know what? Even the manufacturers themselves should consider something like this, just because, let's say, if you are Sony, why not to allow, if it's possible, technically possible, because at the end of the day, you might actually sell more lenses. And we know that the money is in the lenses many times, not in the cameras.
Well, the thing is, you can't change a mount if it's an autofocus lens. So that immediately makes it impossible for most of them. And I think
You're right.
That's why it's not possible. And that's why, most people want also lenses that are autofocus supporting.
Yeah,
I guess
right.
we're a little bit, in this niche where we're like,
I was thinking
anamorphic is
anamorphic.
nice, but yeah, but it's like, it's not even, it's probably less than 2% of people who need that in comparison to the overall market, what people are shooting. And they, especially creators and people who fast turnaround, need autofocus lenses. And that kind of limits you mostly to the lenses that the original manufacturer makes. So
That's true.
Good.
Okay, anyway, this is a very nice poll. And by the time that you see or hear this podcast, we will ask also the people what is their, like from when you talk about camera accessories, we really want to know which brand is your favorite. And we know that accessories is really, it's a huge thing. There's so many products there, so we kind of try to center companies that make cages and more. But that will be also very interesting to see. We are listing quite a lot of companies. We will allow multiple answering option, but I'm very curious to see the results here.
All right, let's move on to a new camera. So we have a new camera. It's the Sony PXW Z300, a little handy cam with a 1/2-inch 4K CMOS sensor. So, Johnny, what do you think?
Yeah.
Is did 2005 call and want their camera back, or what's happening?
No, in reality, and come on, we have to credit Sony for doing something specific here. First of all, 3 CMOS camcorder. I mean, for quite a long time we haven't seen 3 CMOS, and this is really aimed for broadcasters. And the main thing here is really world first content authentication, and that's very important, especially if you're working with news with so much going around. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's so easy to manipulate. So that will be very interesting and important for news broadcasters. I think what we should actually focus on, and this for me also a sign of time. If you remember, all of us used to work with much larger, bigger cameras to report and record news, and that was a big source of income for Sony and Panasonic in the past and other companies. This is all gone. I think I haven't seen for years. Of course, there's still the big cameras in some broadcasters because they literally have them and they're still running. But for example, in Japan, this kind of form factor for news recording is extremely popular. That's what you see either a single person or 2 people running together. And that's the type of camera that they're using, because it has all the features that are really needed in terms of connectivity. So the Japanese are very familiar with that. I'm a little bit surprised that with this camera specifically, there is no viewfinder built in, only an LCD screen. Zacuto immediately responded, and while Sony was developing this camera, Zacuto was working on a solution to turn the LCD into a viewfinder. But all in all, the main thing here is, we said, the authentication thing, plus there are some AI features, especially in autofocus. Other than that, I think it's quite identical to what was the previous one, the Z280, if I'm not mistaken. And this camera is also not that it's in broadcast standards, it's very cheap. It's around 8,000 euros. But of course, in today's standards, if you compare it to large sensor and mirrorless cameras, it's quite expensive. But it just the aim and the purpose of this camera is really news gathering.
What's interesting is that it has a V lock on the side. I don't know if you saw that. I don't think we have it on any of the photos, but on the side there is a V lock, not so much for batteries. I mean, you can use it for a battery, but it's intended to put accessories. And for example, you can use this this phone style device from Sony that is actually giving you a 5G connection. So you can go straight to the cloud with the footage, which of course is also important for news gathering. And in general, there's a lot of streaming capabilities built in. It has the HEVC codec, which is highly efficient, of course, and for proxy recording. So somebody commented that the design, they really thought about the design, and it's just better in terms of like where you can mount things compared to the predecessor. So yeah, I mean, I still had the Sony EX3, which is probably one of the first ones that was released in this line. But I just find it interesting that this kind of segment still exists. I think it's shrunk. I think it's fair to say. If you go to news conferences, you will always see a lot of large format cameras now. A lot of people shoot these things now with FX6 cameras. It's not that, those are still dominant. It's crazy how this has also taken over news gathering because of the fact that autofocus is now so good also on large sensors. But there is still a time and a place for these.
Of course, don't forget that there is a built-in lens here. The zoom is remarkable in so many ways. And there is also kind of an extender, a digital extender. So for news gathering, especially if you are following somebody who's quite far away, maybe with a mirrorless camera, that simply will be more difficult to work. I mean, I've done it in the past with the BBC, but it's not so easy. So I'm just saying it's the right tool for the job. And you know what? Also looking, we have this feature, little feature like this article, and we can also see how popular a certain article or product is by watching it. And I can see that quite a lot of people clicked on it. So that means there is an interest with such a camera.
Yeah, last but not least, one thing we didn't mention, I think this is the first one in this line that has the electronic variable ND from Sony, which of course comes from the FX line, from the FX6 and FX9. It's now also built into this with the same 1/4 to 1/28 strength, seamless. Yeah. Which of course, and that's one of the main features for me with this, is that you can set this to automatic ND. And that's amazing. You can literally set your camera to a fixed, let's say, f2.8, and then just have the electronic variable ND adjust depending on lighting conditions and not change the aperture, which is, of course, very unique. Nobody else has a feature like that. All right. Good. Let's move on to another new piece of gear, which is the Atomos Ninja TX monitor recorder. I think it's fair to say that this is the first major upgrade to the Ninja in a very long time. Now, what's different? It's still the same 5-inch size we know from the Ninja monitor recorder. It now has 1,500 nits, so it's a little bit brighter. I think the predecessor was like 1,000. This is one thing that a lot of people complained about compared to some, let's say small HD monitors, which of course many of which are brighter when shooting outside, because it is a good monitor too, right? It's a full HD display with full LUT support and all that, so it makes sense to use this as a monitor. You don't want to use an external recorder and an additional monitor. Atomos, I think, has come a long way with our software over the last 5-6 years when it comes to monitoring capabilities. It is, you can use this as a monitor also. They also have products in their lineup which are only monitors now, which makes sense, but you have all the features also in this, which is still mainly a recorder, I would say. The other big innovation here is that now they are ditching those SSD cartridges that we've known from Atomos for a very long time. in favor of CF Express Type B. And I think this is a great move because it is just a safer way of recording. We know that older versions of the Atomos recorders had always the problem that this SSD could disconnect quite easily. They fixed this a little bit also with the Ninjas, of course, but still it saves space. It makes the whole device smaller if you are using Type B cards and you're simply in the same standard. So if you're recording internally with your camera and you're also recording externally, you can probably use the same type of card, which will be in practice much easier. You can even now, which is funny, use a SSD. You can connect an SSD via USB-C and record externally. So you can have an external recorder to your external recorder, if that's your kind of thing. But it's maybe a little bit crazy. But yeah, it's possible now. This supports, like the Ninja TX supports HDMI 2 and 12G SDI input and output. And I think even it's now, is the SDI, yeah, the SDI is built right into the device, which is great. You don't need an extra accessory to support SDI, like was the case with some former versions of the Ninja. And of course, it has all the features that you know from Atomos recorders. You can record Apple ProRes and also ProRes RAW. Atomos, I think, is still the only company that allows ProRes RAW recording. Then we have Avid DNX. We have, of course, H.265 and H.264, and also NDI support. Now, this also comes with antennas. As far as I see, this is not for kind of image transmission. It's more like cloud recording, I think. Let me just check.
Yeah, they have their own service.
Yeah, so it's basically the camera to cloud service, but I think it also supports Frame.io. And you don't need this extra Atomos Connect module anymore that you needed with the former Ninja and Ninja 5. So basically, this is now built in. And this is a Wi-Fi and air glue antenna, which screws on the back of the monitor reporter. It's also part of the package. And when not needed, you can just take them off and don't need the antennas. But basically, if you use the Wi-Fi antenna, you can upload the footage directly to the Atomos Sphere service. And it comes with 20 gigabytes of free storage included. And after that, it's kind of pay-as-you-go pricing. So they basically want to go into the services business like so many others too with that. And they want you to use their cloud. Now this...
for me,
yep, sorry.
For me, I'm happy to see them coming back to the core business because they try to do a bit of lights and a bit of audio with duplicated. I think it was a Comica microphone, if I'm not mistaken, but it was one-on-one just with their own brand name printed on it. So I'm happy to see that they're coming back to the core. Although with so many cameras being able to record internally very high resolution and also with all the cloud services kind of built in the camera, I really want to see how this device will be, if it will be welcomed in the market or people will just move on. Very interesting to see.
Well, I think their one USP is still the ProRes RAW recording capability because there are so many cameras in the market still that do not support ProRes RAW internal recording, and it's very often the only way to get RAW in general is using ProRes RAW, and then you kind of have to go through an Atomos recorder, right? Like if you want to have ProRes RAW from, let's say, a Sony Alpha camera, you have to use an Atomos recorder. There's no other way right now. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's kind of a matter of time until more and more cameras will support internal recording. I guess we don't know exactly what's the case, why there is not more cameras supporting ProRes RAW internal recording. Might be a license issue or something like that. But we just hope that this will be, I mean, the speeds, the card speeds and the bus speeds, especially USB 4 and the version 4 of CF Express Type B do support it. You know, like this is not the limiting factor anymore. So it's just a matter of time until we'll start seeing this, I think, in, the majority of new cameras.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to roll cam. Johnny, what do you think of the roll cam. Do you think that this is the next cameraman? Like, what do they say that it's called the roll cam cameraman? What it is, if you are listening to the audio version of this podcast, it's like a motorized tripod base, which you can put a tripod on top of that, and then it has some kind of LiDAR functions that are connected to your camera, and it will keep, I guess, the same distance to you and follow you around wherever you're filming. And the funny thing is just how it's marketed. So it's called
it's really,
world's
on one
first.
hand, we are now featuring this.
I just had to. It's called world's first robotic cameraman. And it's just like, I mean, please, if you have time, read this article. I spent a little bit too much time on this, taking it apart. It's a very sarcastic piece. It's just crazy. I mean, the way it's marketed is just crazy. They literally have images of a Steadicam operator next to it and compare what a Steadicam operator is versus the roll cam. And it says that, of course, you have to pay the labor. It's also difficult to ensure stability for long distance movement for some reason. Well, if you don't know how to balance a Steadicam, for sure. And the roll cam supposedly is labor saving, convenient to carry, fast, easy setup, and flexible movement. I wonder, I have never seen the roll cam go up and down stairs or anything, like it can just literally roll around on even ground. It's just funny. I mean, it's like the whole thing is crazy.
Yeah. But, Nino, when you look at the Kickstarter campaign, obviously 425 people think it's a legit item, something that they can use in their productions, thinking that they can save money. So actually, this is something as a test case to follow up and see, first of all, if the company will be able to deliver this product. And the second thing is to see, maybe there will be some comments later down the line to see how happy people with the performance, because the test footage that they created and used during the campaign is really underwhelming. It's if you're already doing
you're
campaign,
being too kind. I'm just gonna play this here. I mean, this is the promo video. You don't hear the audio now, but it's like I don't know where to start. It just looks terrible.
Yeah, so I don't want to give too much of a stage. We already spent too much time, and of course you spent a lot of time on writing it, but
it's fun to make fun of something that's that bad, to be honest. It's just like, and the CEO works for NASA. That's what he says. So I think that explains why we haven't had anybody on the moon for the last 60 years, 50 years, because if that's what the level of NASA engineers is like, and then they go on making a really terrible tripod base, I don't know. It's so many things about this sound so fishy. It's crazy. Yeah, but there you go. 400 something people for some reason thought that it's a good idea to spend $279 on this. And even the demo footage looks horrible. So yeah.
Okay.
Good. If somebody would execute this idea in a proper way, maybe, it could be something. But yeah, let's see. I mean, I'll definitely try and find people who get this, if anybody will ever get this, because this seems like one of those Kickstarter campaigns that will just disappear in nothingness. Because if your prototype already looks like this, I can't see them make an actual product. I mean, the screenshots on their page look like 3D prints and stuff. I mean, I don't know. Let's see. Good. Let's move on to something more automated, I guess. Our little AI corner that we have to cover every week, of course. Now, Runway, the company behind, of course, the image generator Runway, and a company is called Runway ML, announced Runway Aleph. Now, this is something that is basing AI-generated video on actual footage. And what it can do, and what they demonstrated, is basically you feed it one shot of something, and then based on that shot, you can automatically generate additional camera angles. So you can just write prompts. You upload a shot and you say, well, I want a wider shot of that, and make the wider shot look like you see this and that in the wider shot that you haven't seen in the close-up, or change the angle, see the front of that actor. And the demo looks very impressive. I mean, it's scary in a way, of course. It also allows you to change backgrounds of scenes, even the lighting. That's the most impressive part here. You can add dramatic lighting to something that is extremely flatly lit, and of course also change it into different styles and stuff like that. The most useful thing, I guess, for VFX is just adding stuff to the background. I mean, for example, empty ranks of a football stadium, and you can just add people in the background or something like that. I mean, we have an example video here. Where is that? It's down here. Yeah. So this is the example original shot. Just shows a football player walking in an empty stadium, and then it just you just fill it with people. I mean, some people have remarked that the people are way too big in the background. Of course, I mean, it's not perfect, but it's insane.
It will
Those
be in
things,
6 months.
Yeah, those things took weeks to create individual shots like that. If you do that in classical VFX, and now you can just prompt it. You can also prompt. There's a shot of an older person, an older man sitting at a bar, and then it just writes, make him young, and wearing the same clothes. It just tries to estimate what this person looked like when he was younger, and just same movement, same everything, same lighting. I would not be able to discern this from actual footage if I just saw that footage, like that shot by itself.
So who is it for, actually? I mean, this is for independent users or for big production houses?
Yeah, I mean, this is now, it's only going to be, I think they just today, as the time of recording, they are launching this to their top tier like subscribers. So if you have one of their bigger plans, I don't know how much exactly that is per month, you can already use that feature and try it out. It's not available yet for their entry-level plans. I mean, one thing, of course, is also, I'm just showing the shot of camera guy reflecting in a mirror. Very difficult to rotoscope those things. I mean, it's done every day for feature films, and now this is something that can just be prompted, I guess. It's just amazing. I mean, this is literally one of the first features where I see, well, this is made for filmmaking, because you are basing this on actual footage and just generating and changing stuff. And this will definitely have a huge impact on VFX in the very near future, because it will save so much time and effort for VFX. And it will, I mean, VFX arguably is not a democratized area, right? It's something that still requires very specialized skill and labor right now. And it's not something that, like a one-man band shooter or a small production company would access very often. With tools like this will change. I mean, you will be able to do things that are very hard to discern from high-end VFX, and it will have a huge impact on VFX generation in the future. So let's see where this leads. And it also leads me to the next subject, which is Netflix announced for the first time that they used AI to generate VFX for what they say first time. And this came up in the earnings call when Ted Sarandos mentioned that there is an Argentinian series called El Eternauta, the Eternaut, an Argentinian science fiction series. And apparently I haven't seen it, but the final scene was generated using AI tools. And Ted Sarandos didn't mince his words. I mean, he said that they were 10 times faster than it could have been completed with traditional VFX tools and workflows. And also, more significantly, of course, for budget-conscious productions, he emphasized that the cost of that wouldn't have been feasible for a show in that budget range. So they basically said that they were able to generate something faster and cheaper than they would have been able to generate it at all. I mean, of course, he has to say that, because otherwise people would say you're just saving money. Exactly. So, yeah, this is just another example of this already moving into mainstream productions. And I think I've predicted this before on the podcast, where that we will see within this year, we will see probably a fully AI generated series on one of those major streaming platforms, I still think it's going to be Netflix, and I expect it to be an animation series because that's still the most easy to generate right now. So it's probably going to be a kids show that we'll see in the very near future that will be entirely AI generated. Whether we like it or not, whatever that means for our industry, but VFX, animation, and that kind of stuff is definitely the first stuff that's going to be heavily affected by AI generative video tools, and we already see it happening. Good. Let's just do 2 more quick gear updates. Johnny, Godox announced something new, right?
Yeah. So we see another inflammable,
inflatable, not inflammable. I hope.
I hope so too. That's after 1.5 hours of talking. Inflatable device, this time from Godox, and this is the AM1600R. Actually, it looks quite impressive. It looks very nice. It will come in 2 sizes. One will be 1.2 to 2.4 meters, and the other one is 2.4 on 2.4 meters. And this is, of course, to cater the needs of larger studios. As a top light, the image video that they created is really very much convincing. Of course, you can control the light, CRMX and Ethernet and so on, all very easy. And also, it's not that heavy, so it's very easy to transport, very easy to install. And I think the main thing here, if you want or need to be quick on a set, it's very convincing. And the price also, depending on, I think for medium to large productions, what, 7,000, let's say 8,000 versus $9,000 for that kind of kit. And I think they did, again, a very good job. Of course, we've seen similar stuff from Aperture and so on, but we know already that within those companies, they literally fight each other, sometimes cannibalize each other. But now Godox also entered the inflatable, not inflammable world of products.
All right. And last but not least,
and the last one,
also have something from ASUS.
I mean, ASUS is very active. Recently, we will see much more things coming up very soon, but we actually wanted to highlight the ASUS ProArt PA27 JCV 5K display. If you're not into the Mac 5K display, this is actually a great option. First of all, the price of it's about $850 US. And we kind of dove into this. It got certain awards from reputable associations, but I think more important, let's leave the awards aside. People are simply very happy at working with this monitor. And if you go to the B&H site, next to every product, you have those reviews. You can see that people are saying this is a very solid, it has a very solid image quality and very good compatibility with the Mac setup. So we wanted to highlight this because we think it's always nice to discover products which are very solid and at the same time reasonably priced.
All right. Good, Johnny. Let's wrap it up here, I would say. That's long enough. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And see you next week on a new episode of CineD Focus Check podcast. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and also use it, listen to it on your favorite podcasting platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and so on. And please don't forget to also send it to a friend. We need new listeners as well, right? So if you like the podcast, just let others know that you like it. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, guys.